You've said this word thousands of times. You've clicked it, you've whispered it, you've used it to end conversations, hide feelings, agree without caring, and move on without thinking. And yet, it's one of the most powerful words humans have ever created. It has no meaning on its own. It belongs to no culture. It survived wars, crossed every border, and now controls billions of decisions every single day. This is the story of a word so small, it quietly took over the world. Before there were words, there was silence. Silence was the first language humans ever knew. It filled forests, caves, and the space between heartbeats. But silence is heavy, and humans, fragile, thinking creatures, have never been very good at carrying heavy things for long. So we made sounds. At first, those sounds were warnings, cries of fear, shouts of hunger, signals that meant danger, come closer or stay away. Over time, those sounds softened. They turned into patterns, and eventually into words. But even as language grew complex, with rules, grammar, and thousands of ways to say the same thing, people everywhere kept reaching for something simple, a sound that meant, things are fine, we're safe, we can move on. Not perfect, not great, just fine. That instinct existed long before the word okay ever did. Humans don't like conflict as much as we pretend to. We like rhythm. We like conversations that flow without friction. Somewhere deep in the brain, older than cities, older than writing, there's a quiet question we're always asking. Are we okay with each other? Before words, we nodded, then we grunted, then we found short sounds that didn't require thinking. Yes can feel heavy, no can start a fight. I agree takes effort. What we needed was a verbal nod, something neutral, something quick, something that said, I'm not stopping you. And then almost by accident, we got it. In the 1830s, in Boston, newspapers developed a strange habit. Writers intentionally misspelled phrases as inside jokes for educated readers. All correct became ol correct. Shortened, it became okay. It was never meant to last. It was a passing joke, a clever trend that should have faded like slang always does. But this tiny word landed on something ancient. It was short. It was easy. It took almost no effort to say. You could use it when you agreed. You could use it when you didn't care. You could use it when you were tired. You could use it when you wanted a conversation to end. Words don't survive because they're beautiful. They survive because they're useful. As the word spread, something unexpected happened. Immigrants arrived by the millions, speaking different languages, carrying different customs. They needed a word that crossed borders, a word that didn't then belong to any grammar. Okay did. You didn't need to conjugate it. You didn't need to explain it. You didn't even need to pronounce it perfectly. A dock worker could shout it. A shopkeeper could mutter it. A child could whisper it. It meant I understand enough. Not fully, not deeply. Enough. Other words demand things from us. Yes invites confirmation. No invites conflict. Good invites judgment. Fine invites suspicion. But okay just sits there. It doesn't argue. It doesn't persuade. It doesn't resist. It allows the world to keep moving. That's why it survived wars. That's why it crossed oceans. That's why pilots say it, doctors say it, and lovers say it when they aren't sure how they feel. Okay is the sound of compromise, and eventually it learned how to lie. Someone asks, how are you? You're not okay. But you say it anyway, because okay doesn't describe reality. It manages it. It says, I will continue, I won't explain, I'm not inviting you closer. In that way, okay became armor. Then machines arrived, computers needed a way to ask permission to move forward. Confirm was too formal. Proceed felt cold. Accept felt legal. So they chose our smallest word. Click OK. You didn't read the text. You didn't think about it. You just moved on. The word had finished its evolution. From joke to signal to agreement to emotional shield to button. One syllable guiding billions of decisions every day. And here's the strange part. Almost every language has a word for yes, but OK escaped language entirely. It has no grammar, no tense, no ownership. It's not English anymore. It's human. Because okay doesn't mean good. It doesn't mean bad. It doesn't mean right. It means acceptable. And acceptance is the most realistic goal humans have ever had. We rarely solve everything. We rarely reach perfection. We adapt. We settle. We move forward. Okay is the sound of survival. Imagine the last conversation humanity ever has. There's no time for speeches, no room for debate. Someone asks, are we ready? The answer won't be complicated. It'll be okay. Not because everything is solved, but because we're going anyway. And that's why we still say it, because it fits uncertainty, because it doesn't demand honesty, because it allows motion without meaning. We say okay because sometimes understanding is too much to ask, and sometimes okay is enough. Because okay didn't just survive by being useful, it survived by being flexible. At some point, the word began to change its shape, not in spelling, but in tone. The same two letters could mean completely different things depending on how you said them. Okay, flat, closed, end of discussion. Okay, curious, doubtful, maybe even suspicious. Okay, bright, willing, ready. Okay, hesitant, heavy, carrying something unspoken. No other word learned to bend emotion so quietly. It became a mirror. You didn't hear the word, you heard the person behind it. This made okay dangerous in a subtle way. It allowed people to participate without revealing themselves. You could stay in the conversation without actually being in it. You could agree without alignment. You could comply without belief. Entire systems learned to rely on that. Bosses asked, "Can you handle this?" Employees said, "Okay." Teachers asked, "Do you understand?" Students said, "Okay." Governments announced policies. Citizens said, "Okay." Not because they truly agreed, but because okay was the path of least resistance. The word became the sound of quiet consent. And in that way, it shaped history without ever appearing in it. Think about how many moments hinged on that word: a soldier hearing orders, a nurse receiving instructions, an engineer launching a system, a pilot responding to a tower. Okay didn't mean confidence, it meant readiness, and sometimes it meant resignation. As the world sped up, okay kept pace. Telegraphs reduced language to dots and dashes, telephones compressed distance, text messages collapsed conversation into fragments. Okay thrived in every compression. When characters were limited, okay fit. When time was short, OK survived. When attention vanished, OK remained. It became the smallest possible acknowledgement that still counted as human. And then came the internet. Forums, chats, emails, comments, entire conversations reduced to OK, no punctuation, no explanation, no follow up. It could mean I saw this. It could mean I agree. It could mean I don't care enough to argue, and everyone understood. Because okay doesn't ask to be interpreted carefully, it asks to be accepted quickly. That's why algorithms love it. That's why systems rely on it. That's why platforms adopted it. Accept cookies? Okay. Allow permissions? Okay. Agree to terms you didn't read? Okay. The word stopped being about agreement and became about momentum. It wasn't asking what you wanted, it was asking whether you would slow things down. And most of the time, you wouldn't. But something interesting happened in private spaces, between friends, between partners, between people who cared. Okay began to feel thin. Someone would say, "Is that really okay with you?" And suddenly the word wasn't enough anymore. Because okay works best when stakes are low, when emotion is muted. When distance exists, when closeness enters the room, okay starts to crack. That's fine becomes suspicious. Okay becomes evasive. Silence becomes louder. In those moments, people want more than acceptance. They want honesty. And OK was never built for that. It was built for survival, not intimacy. That's why couples argue about it. That's why parents question it. That's why OK can feel like a wall. It's the word you use when you don't know how to say more or don't want to. Still, we keep using it because the world doesn't wait for emotional clarity, because explanations are expensive, because most days we're tired. Okay lets us move through the day without stopping to unpack everything we feel. And maybe that's not a failure of language. Maybe it's mercy. Imagine a world where every agreement required enthusiasm, where every response demanded sincerity, where every yes came with a paragraph. We would never leave the house. Okay is the oil in the machinery of human life. Invisible, uncelebrated. But without it, everything grinds. Even now, as you listen to this, you're probably nodding along, not passionately, not loudly, just okay. And that's the final truth of the word. It doesn't ask to be loved, it doesn't try to inspire, it doesn't promise anything. It just says, I'm here, I'm continuing, I'm not stopping the world today. In a universe that rarely offers certainty, that might be the most human sound we ever made. So the next time you say it or click it or hear it whispered back to you, remember what you're really doing. You're choosing motion over perfection, acceptance over explanation, survival over silence. You're saying what humans have always said in every age, in every language, in every uncertain moment. Okay.